Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hidden Existence. So sorry for the delay. We had a few technical issues, but we're here now and appreciate you waiting. Of course, with me is Jason. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing wonderful. It was fun
Good.
chasing gremlins for a little bit, but we're done. All the gremlins are caught, and we're ready to begin. I'm really excited for this interview.
Brilliant. Me too. I've got a great guest tonight. Extremely interesting, and we're going to get into it all. But anyone who has been following the Epstein Maxwell saga will really appreciate this interview tonight. Our guest, William Steele, true crime writer, writes from personal experience, and a bit like Bigfoot encounters, at the end of these encounters, there's people at the end of them that are suffering, that are going through something.
Yeah.
And it's the same with this true crime. And he's become an advocate for victims of violent crimes. He's just wrote a book about GHISLAINE, his personal experiences with her on the island, on the Palm Beach. We're going to get into it all, but welcome, William.
Hey, welcome. Thank you for having me, Danielle
Oh.
and Jason. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
We're glad to have you on, Mr. Steele.
Thank you.
Definitely. We're going to get into it all. We're actually not going to get into too much of the book because there's ongoing stuff going on, cases involving witnesses and stuff. So you are limited to what you can talk about. But we're not going to reveal too much about the book anyway, because we want people to go and get it and read it. And it is fascinating. And people will be truly astounded at some of the stuff that is in the book. But let's get into a bit about you before all this happens, before you become a true crime writer. Where are you from? How was your, how did you get into it all?
Well, a little bit of background is I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I grew up in a middle-class family. I was in real estate, and I was trained as a locksmith, alarm technician, safe and vault technician. And in my life, in my 20s, I dabbled on and off in cocaine. So I had some run-ins with the law, and I perverted my skills in locksmithing and alarm technician to commit high-end burglaries all across the United States. So I was stealing.
Okay.
I was pretty notorious jewel and art thief. I was incarcerated, and during my incarceration, more than once, unfortunately, some people have a hard head, and I was one of them. I worked mostly as a law clerk, and I also started taking some college and university courses. Through that transformation and learning that really it's more beneficial to me to stop suffering loss and start helping people, I just started to write of my experiences to the degree I'm able, because you can't necessarily profit off your crimes. But what I have done is I started becoming a victim advocate, and I advocate with my fiance, Dr. Mary Bass, to help people that are wrongfully incarcerated, to try to get exonerations. So I decided to write books about some of the characters I've met along the way. There's other books coming out, but just some of the people I've met along the way: Robert Durst, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, actor Robert Wagner, several other people that I've met along the way. And I put them in my books. It was going to be an autobiography at first. My co-author, Gary Greenberg, who wrote a great book called Beer Diet Book, he was the editor-in-chief or an executive over at AMI, American Media. And he was a jury foreman in a case where I stood up and I testified to help an innocent guy get out of prison. He was being framed, and I was called as a defense witness to testify. He was looking at a life sentence. He was being framed. Anyway, he got acquitted, and Gary and I stayed in touch. Gary's now my co-author on the first book about Robert Durst. So I was going to write my autobiography and make Durst a minor player. When I went to some media outlets and some law enforcement to try to say what I knew, they weren't taking it very serious. And in fact, some of the media said, "Oh, he's no longer newsworthy. We don't want to hear about it." This is, a few years back, I think just before the Jinx. So Gary and I shifted our focus and said, let's just put out a book about Durst and all those experiences. And that's how that book came to be. I wrote that before I was released, actually, and I actually published it before I was released. And everybody was afraid. They said, "Oh, Robert Durst is going to sue you. yet everything I've said came true in Los Angeles, because I said this years ago when I wrote my manuscript. He admitted to several things that are now admitted to at the trial. He was convicted for murdering Susan Berman, a mutual friend of ours, and shortly after his conviction and sentencing, I think he was already sentenced, he died of COVID a few weeks ago in prison. So now there's going to be a bunch of litigation for his enablers. The second book, I didn't necessarily, this was the even more dangerous one to write. The one that just came out a few weeks ago, I titled it GHISLAINE Sensational and Impure, because one of the judges ruled that some of the material in her case was too sensational and impure to be released. So I thought that was a good a title as any. And it's my experiences of meeting them and some of the things I endured at the Palm Beach mansion when I went over there at the time when I was a fugitive. And so I'm also writing a book now about the criminal justice system and the need for reform in the United States. Another book about actual innocence. And of course, my life story is going to be in another book. I guess that's enough background. Before I got out of prison, I was actually offered a TV show, and I accepted the offer. It's going to be on a major network. We've already filmed 10 episodes, and it has to do with my reacclimating to society and the people that I'm around. I can't say much more, contractually bound not to discuss it until the network starts their publicity. But I know, I even heard from the producers today, one of them, and he said it's still set for release in the summer, and it's one of the biggest networks out there. So I have just been blessed by turning my life around and trying to do the right thing. A lot of opportunities are falling in my lap, and I look forward to helping victims. And that's what I do now. That's what I do now.
Well, it's amazing that you've turned it around for yourself in that sense, and you're doing something for people, because that's, we need people like yourselves to be a voice for those that can't speak or are too afraid to speak. That's right. It's so important. And that's the bigger picture here, is more than anything is you doing that. So can you get into how you actually met GHISLAINE? Or GHISLAINE? I know people say her name. So anyways,
so this is actually a great opportunity. How do you say her name?
My understanding it's pronounced GHISLAINE or GHISLAINE, something like that. You guys are okay. You're British. I think you should have a better grasp on it than me.
Yeah,
right?
but I think actually I need to give a shout out to our mutual friend Kerry, who actually put us in touch.
Absolutely.
Without her, we wouldn't be doing this. But I think last night she told me it was GHISLAINE, and it said, because it's a French name. So
everybody needs to
don't sue me if I'm wrong. So how can you, it sounds like you've been, obviously with the crimes you were doing, maybe in the money that was involved, then you're obviously maybe dealing with more.
With what? I'm sorry?
Oh, Danielle's frozen. She's frozen a little bit, but I think I know where she was going. It sounds like you were, the crimes that you were committing, because they were higher end, you were sort of dealing with a higher end side of the criminal underworld kind of a thing.
Exactly. At that time, when I was doing a lot of illegal things, I had at any given time, a few $100,000 in jewelry, and some of my fences were actually in Palm Beach. Fences being people that would buy stolen jewelry and artwork. And one of them had a diamond salon, and I was in there one day in the 90s, and Jeffrey Epstein was in there, and I didn't know who he was at the time, of course, and he didn't realize I was in the same salon at the same time. It was a very private place, and on Worth Avenue in Palm Beach. And I noticed he was with who I describe in my book as a Jodie Foster doppelganger. She looked just like Jodie Foster, taxi driver era Jodie Foster, which looks like she was about 13. And he had his hand down the back of her pants, shorts she had on, with shorts. And I looked at him and, glared and made some noise to let him know I was in the room. And I eventually followed him out and confronted him down the block at a place called Taboo, which was a little restaurant, on Worth Avenue. And so that's how I met him originally. And he talked his way out of that. And she, said that whatever, they were related in some way. And that's how I met him. And when I told him what I was doing, he said he baited my greed, and I basically spared him what I was going to do to him, which was either hurt him or call the cops or whatever. But I had an illegal gun on me. I had jewelry on me. It wasn't going to be conducive to me if the police showed up. But so when I confronted him, he, dangled money in front of me and was offering to buy jewelry and stuff like that. And, it wasn't, hindsight's 2020. A lot of people probably saw a lot of things and probably should have done a lot more. And in hindsight, I was, I believe, wanted at the time, and I had stolen jewelry with me. I had a gun with me. And so anyway, I let it slide and pretty much put him on notice, But he would buy stuff from me occasionally, jewelry and stuff. I was imagine it was for what he called models or friends and all that.
Right.
That's how I met him. And eventually at the house in Palm Beach is where I met who I call GHISLAINE.
Okay.
So that's how.
Wow. So just this random chance encounter while you're fencing. So okay, I'm going to derail just a hair because I am this kind of a nerd, and I may or may not have had some training in forgery. How do you sell artwork? I know that it's a big thing, but it's like, unlike jewelry where you can maybe, if you absolutely needed to, you could melt down the gold, you could reset the diamonds, things like that. Like artwork is like they're known things, they're cataloged. How do the fences? Is it just everyone knows it's stolen, or what's going on there?
Pretty much, it's very difficult, and I never stick anybody with something that I know is stolen and they don't, because then they would have every reason in the world to send the police back to me, or they might put it up for auction or something. And hey, this guy, Bill Steele sold it to me. But no, they know what they're getting into. They either like it or they want to sell it on the black market or whatever they do with it. I don't know. But you don't get big money for it. I think the way to make money on stolen artwork is a lot of people ransom it back to the insurance companies or to law enforcement. If they're in trouble with other crimes, they'll use it as a bargaining chip. I think it's interesting. That's been done before, where people actually would use that for bargaining chip.
That's fascinating. I didn't even know that was something that was done. Sorry. My own little personal thing. I'm a bit of I dabble in art, so I really appreciate that. Okay. Back to the thing that probably everyone else is screaming, like, why are you talking about artwork? So you meet GHISLAINE, and how does that go? Again, from what you can tell us, without divulging too much, you strike up a relationship with her.
Right. Well, we struck up sort of a relationship, and I saw her over time throughout the years. And then I was involved with her a couple of times, and then with an adult woman or two. And it's not easy to talk about here because I have an audience here too.
But, I understand.
Right. So it went like that, and it was a trust level because they had seen me with guns. They saw me with cocaine. I had a pretty bad cocaine problem at the time. And I think people like this tend to prey on that. Even though I was good at what I did, I was still, there was times when I was struggling. And so the easy money and the Palm Beach lifestyle and being able to hang out on Palm Beach, suited me just fine. So, but that's how I met her at the house there.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm trying to. So before we get too far into this aspect, I know that's what everyone is asking. I have a slightly different question. Oh, Daniela's back.
It always does it to me.
You missed it. He told us everything. He's ready to go now.
I was listening on my phone as I was waiting for the internet to come on. But sorry, I know you just asked him something. I wanted to know.
So before we get too far into your relationship with GHISLAINE and those kinds of questions, I have a series of other questions, and you can say I don't know. You can say I can't talk about it. That's perfectly fine. GHISLAINE's father is a really interesting gentleman. Did she talk about him at all? Because it seems like he may have had some. How do I say this? Some connections to I believe they're called the Five Eyes. Either at least Mossad, maybe CIA. Did she talk about any of that at all?
I will say yes, but the details are, the type of thing that gets people disappeared and killed.
Yeah, and I understand. That's the
answer.
Fine.
The short answer is yes. The long answer is, do I want to go into detail here or really with anybody about this, even FBI or other intelligence agencies? It's pretty obvious, and by their admission, at certain points what they were doing, and that they were getting blackmail material on people and for their own perversions, but plus for intelligence agencies. And I won't name the main one because, I'm definitely a supporter, but at the same time, I'm not trying to disappear.
Yeah, you're not trying to die here. That's what I'm saying. I completely get it. So it's like, I have to admit, I'm almost more interested in her family and her familial ties than I mean, because, okay, like you said, no one's trying to get killed here. Right. By the way, I will, by the way, just for everyone in the chat, I will never hang myself under any circumstances. Just letting you know.
There's been times when she was in tears and she confided a few things to me, and I resisted other things that they offered to me, if you know what I mean. And because of that, I guess she had a different level of trust and almost like a confidant for a short time. And she did reveal to me that her father, had molested her. She didn't use the word molest, but basically taught her everything she knows about sex, and that she should please a man and do whatever her man says, no matter what, the man in her life. And I guess later on that became Jeffrey Epstein, and he was into what he was into, and then trying to get blackmail material on people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I don't know how much of that it's ever come out or not, or, if this is the first time it's coming out, but she detailed a lot of that to me. I put some of this in the book. You'd have to get the book to see some of the more details, and really the rest that I feel comfortable talking about would be more for law enforcement, all the victims' rights attorneys.
Right. Absolutely.
I've been in touch with a couple of them. I think once they got their settlements, there was some kind of fund for the victims that they really just broke contact with everybody, that was willing to say anything. So I'm just speculating, but no, I've been in touch. I have letters from them that they wanted me to, help give evidence against Epstein, and then he turned up dead. And then,
no,
we don't know how he died, do we?
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's not open that particular kettle of fish. We want to stay on YouTube for a little bit longer for this. This is one of those. This is one of those terrible things where it's like, we want to stay on so we can tell this story, because you have some very important things to say. We want to stay on YouTube with this, but none of us want to die, but because of an interview. But so from what I'm hearing you say, her father was an even bigger scumbag than we've been led to believe, but they were connected to the intelligence world in the past, and that's where a lot of her money and stuff was coming from, is what he was doing in his connections. That's absolutely okay.
That's exactly right, and that's from her mouth, not his, but from her mouth. Right. So I wasn't around long enough, or in England, or I didn't know her father.
No, absolutely. Like I said, I didn't expect her to be like, so let me tell you everything that happened in my life in fine detail, and here's a dossier with all the evidence. Like, I didn't figure that was the case, but I figured she may have let something slip.
I can only speculate that that's one of the reasons she won't cooperate, because she probably feels her days will be numbered too if she does. I have zero compassion for her. I stand up for the victims. As a matter of fact, let me show you something. I don't know if you can read this.
No, pull it a bit closer.
Yeah.
William Steele. I can't see that now.
Anyway, it says red is for the victims. That's how I sign all my books in red ink.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm all about the victims and advocacy. And really all these young women coming forward is what inspired me to tell a little bit I know about my experiences, and even her stated desire a few years ago to try to have Epstein killed. She knew that this was going to come to a head one day, and she didn't have anybody. She was in tears when she was talking about it.
Okay, so then let me ask this. Because I honestly had no idea about that her father had molested her. Again, I don't know if anyone knew. But so because true crime is not really my bag, but I am interested in this case for obvious reasons. So then let me ask you this, and again, only your opinion. And I get it. Your sympathy is with the victims, as is mine. Right? I'm right there with you. Then I guess the question I have to ask is, obviously she participated in this. She is a criminal. That's not a question. But do you think she's someone who fell into this, or was she basically raised to do what she was doing? I guess is the question I would ask you.
I would say she was probably raised to do what she was doing. She was with somebody who was already into, the intelligence aspect of things and blackmail material, and found a kindred spirit in Jeffrey. I mean, the two of them, he was into the young girls, but also capitalized on having powerful people have supposedly anonymous sex with them. I was always concerned that the little bit that I, did with her and especially this other adult female at the house, I was always concerned about there being cameras and everything. And one time he asked me, do you see, any cameras here? And showed me a few videos. But I was always concerned. So I would, either want to go somewhere else or make sure all the lights were off, not that would help. Right. But, they had a blackmail machine. Is what they had. I'm not saying anything that anybody hasn't heard already in that regard. And there was videos at that house several years ago that I wrote about in the book why I was compelled to see them, because it was literally one of his bodyguards, a security detail, right there with a gun, and they were trying to get me to do something for them, and then showed me these videos. And this is right after he knew me for several years. And he was talking about how Prince Andrew was his Super Bowl trophy. Now in the United States, that's football. That's the biggest game. I think 2 weeks from now. But he always referred to him as that. And eventually he showed me why. And there was numerous videos with Andrew with women, minors.
Minors.
Yeah.
Including who I now know to be Virginia Gouffre.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he showed him to a couple of people. I guess if they ever found that security guard, he would probably confirm it too, because I think everybody's turning on them at this point, or either running for the hills. So,
yeah, but they didn't have anything on you, but yet you were there and they exposed you to stuff. Why was that?
Well, I wasn't around for any of that. I saw the comings and goings, and of course they said it was models or massages and all that. I had no real clue. And then once I did, I got the hell away from it. Really never went over there much. I started to kind of get an inkling of it, suspicion. Then I saw the videos and the circumstances that I saw them. And then, I was able to get a few things out of there, because that's what I used to do for a living, is take things that didn't belong to me. So they weren't too happy about that, I'd imagine. So
the tapes are somewhere, are they? They still exist, do you know? Do you think
that's one of the things I wrote about in the book, is what I did with certain things that are potentially incriminating that are removed from that house. And it looked like they were in the process of trying to get them out of there anyway at that time.
Right.
So
okay.
I just made it a point to make sure I left with some of them, and I made sure I got them to the appropriate people.
Right.
And I don't know what they ever did with them, but when the right people want to speak to me, I'll tell you exactly where they went. So.
You got insurance, completely understandable.
Well, I don't have it. I don't have anything.
Right.
I wouldn't dare possess that stuff. But
no, exactly.
It was given to two separate parties, and what they did with it those years ago, because it was several years ago, I have no clue. And I'd almost bet that they're highly incriminating. So.
Okay. Interesting.
And embarrassing. I don't know if I can name here some of the other characters I saw, but
it's up to you. Well, it's entirely up to you how far you want to go with it.
I've done an interview for the Sun. If you look up William Steele and Prince Andrew, my name with Prince Andrew Google search, you'll see an article from in the Sun and then the New York Post that I did, and I kind of touched on it, but even my attorneys and other publishers' attorneys are like, well, we don't know yet. We don't know. Nobody's been arrested. Nobody's been convicted. Yeah. Well, he's dead now, and she's convicted. So now I feel a lot more comfortable naming names and giving a lot more specifics, because she needs to be held accountable, and the other people that are enabling them need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
So yes, there was other celebrities. There was a rock star. There was another royal, and I don't think she realized she was being filmed. Who else? I think I listed a few of them in the book, but in an abundance of caution, I didn't put like all of them there, because I don't.
Right.
I don't want to. I don't know what's really out. I haven't followed the case that closely. Of course, towards the end, I did, to make sure she was convicted, and I felt comfortable really getting ready to put this book out. So.
Right. Yeah. And there's legalities from time to time. Believe me, we completely understand. Sorry, Danielle, please.
I was just saying, you use a quote on your website, Edmund Burke quote. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And, you know, it is a risk, isn't it? But people have to come forward, or, you know, there has to be. It's great that there is someone who's prepared to speak, because how else do these things get looked into, you know, or any credibility brought to these, you know, claims?
I'd like to give you a little more background to clarify why it is I do what I do now. I'm not proud of my past and the poor choices I made, and you know, I'm not proud of that at all. But I have fought like hell in the criminal justice system to improve my education and my writing skills and write. And I'm not the best writer. I have great people helping me. My fiance, she's brilliant. My co-author of my first book, Gary Greenberg. But when I grew up, my mother was mentally ill and she was bullied a lot. And I was always the one standing up for her in the neighborhood in Brooklyn. The kids were kind of rough on my mother and calling her names and throwing snowballs at her. So I always grew up fighting for the underdog, the victimized, women, the mentally ill, you know, and then being in prison, and there's all these child molesters around, and they have these ways about them that you almost develop a radar for them now. I could almost tell a pedophile within a few minutes. And I just decided, you know, I know some things about people that I've never really been implicated with and haven't done serious things with. I've never murdered anybody with Robert Durst. I've never messed around with minors. But at the same time, I knew these people. And if my little piece of a puzzle helps somebody now, I think it's my obligation as a human being to really tell what I know. And let the chips fall where they may, you know? So that's where that comes from, just like defending my mother. And so that cocaine's out of my system. My past is very, very far behind me. And I'm doing what I can to help other people now. And it's rewarding. I have a mentor, a guy named Tom Madden. Tom was vice president of NBC in New York. He now owns Transmedia Group public relations firm. He became a very good friend and mentor. He puts out a lot of my press releases still, but he's become a really good friend and mentor, as did Gary, another college professor. And I have such a great support system in place. And my fiance, Dr. Mary Bass, she's been a crime fighter. She's a forensic accountant and really, really good at developing RICO boards and, you know, finding out people with tax violations and all that. So we're in the process of building some prosecutable RICO cases against other individuals that will turn over to the Southern District of New York, including people associated with Maxwell and with Durst. So that's going to be coming out soon. And we were hoping to get that stuff done and in the book, but we want to give it over to the prosecutors in New York first.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's more rewarding to live life this way, not looking over your shoulder. I had Nancy Grace cover my first book on her podcast, you know, so that was pretty interesting. Crime HQ, I don't know if you guys heard of that. Crime HQ is a group of true crime community, has a lot of judges and, you know, just citizens and professors on there that are interested in true crime and victim advocacy. You know, it's been a whirlwind, you know, especially with my TV show. I just walked out of prison, and next thing you know, I'm filming, you know, 10, 14 hours a day, every day. And I'm in the Midwest, even though I'm from New York City and South Florida. And to give you an idea, the first guy I meet here poses as my friend, you know, my you know, benefactor. He says I'm the only billionaire in the town I'm in. The godfather of this town, blah, blah, blah. He's driving all these, you know, high-end cars. He's got a big collection of motorcycles. Turns out he's a swindler, and he's tried to swindle me. He's tried to sell me a house he didn't own, tried to sell us a fake cure for cancer. So Mary, I said, look, I'm getting really suspicious as the guy. Can you dig a little bit and see what you can find? And she said, I hope you're sitting down. She was still in California.
Wow.
And she said, promise me you won't do anything to him. And I said, tell me what you found. And she said, he's been litigated about this before, and he's been successfully sued over it. Bottom line, we found out he swindled probably hundreds of people over the years. He just got charged a few weeks ago. And he's just this horrible human being that poses as a friend, tried to rob me directly out of incarceration while I'm in the middle of I'm in this post-conviction fog, because getting on your feet's an ordeal to get reacclimated. I was locked up over 18 years. So it's just tough. And to meet somebody like him and to think that he was willing to sell us something that would have hurt her like that, So she did an interview on ABC. The FBI finally arrested this guy. He threatened to kill 9 people. His girlfriend, allegedly, he killed her, but he admitted to many people he killed her because she turned over a cell phone that helped make the whole case against him. And so he may be prosecuted for that. He actually may turn out to be the biggest of serial killer. Basically, of people he robs, some of them have complained that they were given laptops by him as a gift, and it had child porn in it. And then the feds open it up and go to their house a week or two later and put them away. Well, Dr. Leslie Scholl, one of the people we're working with, he had $1.5 million stolen from him to buy a clinic he didn't own. Not a clinic, some land to build another clinic. And when he confronted this guy, and because he's arrested, I guess I could say his name, Charles Ray Smith, because he confronted him, he said, "Okay, I'm going to call the cops. You didn't own the land to sell it to me to begin with." And this guy was a very successful doctor. And he threatened to kill him several times. And then he did some deal where he got his gun and his gold coins. And then he told the feds that he was going to, this guy poses as a Hell's Angel, but then yet he works as an informant at the same time. But he told him that he was going to help him secure his gun collection, and he was going to kill his wife for him, kill his divorce lawyer, and all this nonsense. But it was an entrapment case. So when they finally arrested the doctor, they dropped all the most serious charges because this guy basically entrapped him. And then they only put him in prison for failure to transfer a silencer, which was a legal part of a gun collection, without the right paperwork. So this poor guy just got out, a couple of weeks ago, and he's trying to get on his feet. He lost his medical license. His wife, took $7 million from him. And this guy, ended up with everything. So we're just running into these characters. It's unbelievable, the people that we run into, which I just released from incarceration, except for when I escaped. I was profiled on America's Most Wanted website when I escaped. But so I just got released legitimately this time, and I'm getting on my feet. I've got a TV show. I'm writing books. I'm doing book signings. And this is the guy I run into,
Come on.
Yeah. Some people are magnets for stuff, man. Like,
but you, like you say, you just come out of prison, so you're not aware of. Like we were talking the other day about scam emails, and I said, "Oh, do you remember them?" And you went, "I don't know. I've been in prison so long. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how things work. So I guess you're a little naive in some senses to stuff going on the outside.
I mean, you hear about it, but you don't have internet, and you kind of in this fog. America calls it the post-conviction fog. It's and I'm not trusting at all. Don't get me wrong. I like to trust, but I also, being from New York City and having done time, I could identify bullshit when I see it.
Right.
I started picking up on so many red flags, and then ran it by her, and then she did the computer work to, in the public records to find out. And jackpot, this guy was the real deal, and he's a prolific con artist. He's even wanted to kill a celebrity on behalf of another celebrity, showing me the text and everything on his phone. And I don't need to know this stuff, man. Why are you telling me this? I'm not trying to, you go to his house, and in his bedroom, he's got machine guns surrounding his bed and a whole arsenal in another room, supposedly legal. Why do you have that? Well, if they come to arrest me, I'm going to blow the house, all this nonsense. This guy was really super, he was all over the map with what he was going to do if they ever came for him. And, people around him. Now that we put some distance, between us and him, we've learned about all these other victims that are coming forward. They have a tale of somebody who disappeared after confronting him, or they were drugged, and I'm saying allegedly that he did that, but it's just every one of them saying the same thing.
Yeah.
There's just this history with this guy. So I just have this thing where, like, I just can't let it go if I see something incredibly crazy is going on, like, involving violence, kids, women, scams. This was personal to me. A lot of the victims in this case, in the case here with this guy, are in touch, and they're very grateful because he put plans in place to start murdering people, like, 6 weeks ago. and
Wow.
he was caught making specific plans and lining up alibis, and virtually every one of the intended targets, looked me and my fiance up, and they're just like over the top with gratitude, and because they had been threatened,
Oh wow.
but they didn't know
Yeah.
he was putting plans in place to actually start killing people, and that he'd done it before, because these people were trying to prosecute him. And I think the FBI waited a year and a half to actually lock him up. They put him on notice that he was under investigation. I don't know why, but they did. Maybe he was offering to help them with something again, But I know what he did to the doctor and a straightforward entrapment. So.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's devastating. I mean,
Mhm.
all crimes are devastating, aren't they, for victims? But
Yeah, I say that, I want you to understand, and I want people listening. I thank you for your support. And a lot of people might judge me, for my poor choices in my past, but I'm really not that guy anymore. I'm back to being the guy who doesn't like seeing my mother get picked on, and
Yeah.
and really regretting my past. But I'm also very, very friendly, and so I'll talk to anybody. My fiance laughs. He said, "Anytime you've met all these characters, but and now this guy, on top of it, anytime you make a new friend, and we have to take a vote in the family and decide if we're going to let you be friends."
Yeah. You need a background check on everyone that you meet.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I think I still have my background check from my notary, so I can forward that to you if you need.
Okay.
You knocked me off track then. What I was going to say.
Sorry.
But even though you've done your crime, I mean, you've done your time. You've done a long time, and if you hadn't maybe have done that, you wouldn't be what you were doing now. You could have been carrying on with a drug habit, with carrying on your steal, your thieving, your cat art stuff. I mean, there's reasons why things happen.
I wouldn't have met the guy that was getting framed, the guy that was framing him, and coincidentally, the kid being framed and I had the same lawyer. So
right.
I learned about this actually in the jail. He said, "Yeah, I'm going to put it on this kid," and I was like, and when I mentioned it to my lawyer, he said, "You're talking about Roy Thompson?" I said, "Yes." He said, "He's also my client," and we both had. So I was afraid to come forward and mess my plea deal up because. But right is right. I came forward anyway. I said, this kid needs a witness to know what this guy's up to. And he went home, and the other guy got his deal for testifying. But at the same time, he's the real murderer, So I wouldn't have met, people I was able to help, like you said. At the same time, part of me still would rather have those years back,
Right.
I have strained relationships with my family members and stuff like that, so we're hoping to rebuild those, in due course.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a bot in chat. If someone can get rid of that, one of those. Oh, it's gone. Thank you, Cheese Freak. There've been quite a few of them tonight.
Yeah, there
get
were
these things. I got a question. How do you escape from jail, from prison?
Well, it was really nothing fancy, and I actually escaped many times that they didn't know about.
Oh my gosh, this is not what I want to hear.
Right. I did 4 years in Supermax for my exploits and my skills, and even though I didn't have what they call the security custody points as a nonviolent offender, that escape pretty much trumps everything, and you go right to the hole. And I went to the hole for 2 years in Florida and 2 years in Virginia. All because of a 2005 escape, which actually was the last time I saw a GHISLAINE was in 2005. But how did I escape? In this case, I wasn't supposed to get low custody. I kind of manipulated the system to make him reduce my custody. And a few days out working 20 miles from the prison, I walked away. Now, that's the whole story of itself. And the reason they put me on America's Most Wanted profile website is because of my skills. The detective was on the news, whoever was looking for me. I had an incident where they figured out where I was, and I was in there, and they surrounded it, and there was helicopters, and they got a SWAT team or whatever coming up the stairs, banging on the door. Well, I was a law clerk. They didn't know I was in there. They suspected.
Right. Okay.
I only knew where that condo owner was. They didn't. So without his consent or exigent circumstances or a warrant, those three things, they weren't getting in that door unless I opened it. So I just stayed quiet and waited like 30 minutes for them to leave, and I snuck out. They were knocking on the door. Somebody who knew the law. I knew they weren't going to break it down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's hot pursuit, like they're chasing, then
Yeah.
it's exigent circumstances. They can go in,
Right.
or get permission or a warrant, and they'd had none of those three things. So I was free to just.
So all you had to do was just be like, don't be suspicious.
I just didn't even move.
It.
I got up against the wall or something and just froze, hoping they weren't looking reverse through the peephole, but they were out there with dogs and all kinds of vehicles. And in fact, I went for a walk that morning to go grab a local newspaper and to see if I was in there. And the person I was with got suspicious. And he said, I think I was watching the news, and when he came home, I turned it off because I was all over the news. And the next day I went out. He says, "You're the kind of person, seems like you'd want to see the news, wouldn't you?" I said, "No, not really." I was acting like I wasn't wanting to see this. And he says, "Well, there's a machine outside the complex. You go through this thing, and there's a machine right there." And I said, "Yeah, well, I was looking for some houses in the area. Maybe I'll look at the real estate section." He went back to work, kind of suspicious, but not wanting to call the cops on me, I guess. When I walked out there, I saw the helicopter hovering as far as the eye can see, just over the complex. And I said, "Oh, I'm caught." And literally walking to that, a line of undercover cars was flooding into the complex. So I broke into a power walk, chubby guy out for a power walk first thing in the morning, So the police passed right by me, and I looked in and just waved to them, and they're looking for me. I'm like, like seriously wanted, because they treat escape really serious in Florida.
Yeah, I imagine they do.
So as they drove past me, I saw them circle the whole wrong building. They got wrong information. So I doubled back to get a few things in mind. When I ran up, they figured out their mistake and then circled the right building. Now I'm trapped. That's what happened. So it was basically a walk-off.
Yeah.
But I had ways to get outside the search perimeter, avoid the dogs, and avoid the SWAT team that came for me.
Yeah. Wow. I just love the fact that love is probably the wrong word, but I am definitely amused at the idea that you essentially it was the equivalent of, "You in there? No. All right. He says he's not in there. Let's go home, guys." Like,
I didn't say that, but world's dumbest criminals, right? Yeah, no, I didn't say that. I just knew that I could be killed right now because they're allowed to shoot and kill an escapee from prison. Yep. And so I just kind of froze up against the wall away from the peephole of the door so that they wouldn't be able to maybe see a shadow. And I just didn't move till they'd left. And then I went down the stairs. It was like a third floor walk up. When I crept out, I had my stuff over my shoulder. I put one hand in front of my face, one in front of my heart. So at least if they killed me, they'd go down for murder because now, the gunpowder's on my hands. And as I went down the stairs, I said, "Please don't shoot. I surrender. I surrender." And I kept walking down like that until the parking lot. I saw they weren't around. I was like, gone. And I got away. They'd left. They gave up trying to get in there. They went somewhere else.
Wow.
So I was out for like another 2 weeks after that close call.
It's still like you're looking over your shoulder for 2 weeks. I mean, it can't be what do you think the end game is going to be? People being on the run. I mean, what's that feeling?
The end game was like I wanted to go collect some stuff in Palm Beach and probably leave the country for a while, maybe come back. I thought maybe I'd get, a few months or a year or two. Florida is very tough on crime. They don't care if you're a nonviolent offender. I got 15 years for doing that, for walking off a work detail. Other states in this country, it might have been a slap on the wrist, 6 months. Mm-hmm. Florida gave me 15 more years consecutive to what I had to finish serving. So
wow,
that shock to the system, and then the loss of my family. My mother passed away while I was incarcerated. I had other people step up and steal, an expected inheritance. And so all that loss just made me really see the light. I think it was a movie that says, have the days of darkness cost you to see the light.
Mm-hmm.
The quote you said from Edmund Burke, all that's needed for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to be in all my books. It's in both of these books right now. So it's in the very beginning of this one and in this one, and it's going to be in my life story. It's just that important because, your listeners or watchers or whatever, your viewers can say that, this guy's a real jerk. He stole a lot, and he did horrible things. Mm-hmm. Yes, but you don't kill people for doing that. And I really had to change the heart, and I wish I could make amends to everybody I offended. But this is kind of my way of giving back and showing society that occasionally people, they get their shit together, and I did. So,
well, it's easy to judge people, but it's real life.
right.
It's what happens. You know, it's yours isn't the first story of being a locksmith and doing whatever, and
Right.
you know, it's just, but it's what you do with it, what you do with it, how you deal with it is the important thing, and that's what shines through.
Now some of my closest friends are, like I said, you know, executives and, you know, a couple of celebrities, producers, you know.
So you're still hanging with criminals, is what I understand.
Yeah, and well, those, yeah, but and then also, I'm a big law enforcement supporter now. You know, support the blue. I'm on all these sites, and I think at first they didn't want anything to do with me, you know, because I'm sure they look up everybody that joins their groups. But I think I'm sort of accepted now, even though they, you know, but you know, I feel bad for they have a really thankless job in this country with all the guns and everything, which I'm a big supporter of. But they need to be in the hands of the right people, and they're not in this country a lot of times, and the cops are not getting the support they need here. So
no, they're definitely not.
But I'm a big supporter of the police. You would think I wouldn't be, but I actually am. So,
well, anyone who cares about victims who actually care about law and order and want a good and peaceable society want they want to support the police to do the right thing. The problem is, again, the problem is we have police officers who don't do the right thing. We have politicians who make the police not do the right thing, and that's all. And that's where a lot of this stuff gets complicated.
And
but anyone who's
there's some brutality and abuse of authority, but those are the bad apples. I don't look at them as cops. They're basically criminals in a uniform. So I'm not talking about obviously supporting them. Those are the ones that create all this controversy and victimization of police, because the good ones are almost afraid to inform on the other ones, because it's like, you know, code of silence in a lot of their own agencies, you know, that they don't really want to get their other people in trouble. But then a lot of times these things, if you don't nip them in the bud, they escalate. You know, you can't appease these people that are corrupt or violent or anything else. You have to deal with it, nip it in the bud. That's my experience living with criminals and then being on the street dealing with criminals. If things aren't nipped in the bud, all they're going to do is escalate. They're going to get worse.
It's like a cancer. It metastasizes. Corruption contaminates everything. And then the problem is then you're dealing with the contamination as if it is the thing.
So now the few corrupt officers are being caught on camera hurting people, and it's a reflection on all of them. Unfortunately, it's unjustified, but that's what's going on. I hear guys in prison saying, I'm going to hold court in the street, because a lot of times the sentencing is so harsh in this country, especially in the South, that most guys are not going to go back, and they're willing to carry a gun for a minor crime because they're afraid of getting 20 or 30 years. So they have an expression, they're going to hold court in the streets if they get confronted or arrested again, which means shoot it out with the police. So I wanted to introduce a program to the prison systems where retired police officers might go back, and a lot of these incidents escalate from like traffic stops or domestic violence, and where guys, before they get released, go through a course with retired police officers about what to do during a police encounter. You know, yes, sir, no, sir, here's my ID. Yes, sir, okay, thank you, no ticket. I'm sorry, I was speeding, and go about your business. Instead of trying to escalate, you know, the police are trained to de-escalate. But if you're not training the guys that have been in prison to de-escalate themselves, a lot of these things can escalate, and somebody's going to end up hurt, dead, or, you know, we're going to be going to more funerals.
Right. No, absolutely. We had a question in the chat that sort of tied in to another question that I have. And again, you may not have had the contact to answer this particular question. But Iron Dogger, a friend of ours, asked if you had either any insight as to why Epstein sort of became this gatekeeper for science. Like it seems like he had his
I think that was just his own personal interest. I think, wasn't he into mathematics or something? It was his own thing. There was some talk, I don't remember where I first heard it, but that he wanted to have all these women have his babies on an island or a compound somewhere, and, you know, like a master race. It sounds almost like a Hitler situation. He was very arrogant about his intelligence and his wealth. So possibly for that reason, for life extension and for him to rule the world. There was a medical device that he had that was supposedly under research that I wrote about in the book. And when I asked him where in this book, I can't see the camera. Okay, you have it on the screen. where I asked him, I said, where did you get that from? You know, and I was able to use it for a second. And he said that it was alien technology. He wouldn't say where he even got this thing from. And
Oh, wow.
It had some incredible capabilities. But how would Jeffrey Epstein get something like that if that was the case? Or was it just something research, had developed and he's got a prototype of it? So.
Okay. I was going to get the book, but now I kind of, do you go into detail about what the machine did or what it did or what it is in the book, or?
Oh, you'd have to actually read the book, sir.
Well, that's what I was asking. If it's in the book, then that's what I'm saying. It's like I was going to get the book anyway. Now I'm fascinated. But if the details in the book, then I'll leave it for that.
You'd have to read. I can't give too much away, other than he said
it was alien technology.
Yes, he said it was alien technology, and it's almost defies belief to even think that. But when I saw what this thing did, which we'll save that for another interview, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we will do a couple of more interviews with you because there's so many layers here, and we're going to cover the Robert Durst thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think if people don't realize exactly who Jeffrey Epstein was, probably one of the wealthiest people on the planet, billionaire,
yes,
islands and mansions and stuff all over the world, and so he could have purchased this from somebody who came across it if it was truly not from this planet. I don't know. I have no way to verify that.
Obviously,
I think I know where one of them are because it was more than one. So,
oh wow, okay. So then just as a follow up to that last point you made, because this has always been my question. I have looked into this. No one seems to know exactly how he made his money. There's always these vague statements about, investment banking, but like usually you can look at someone's like, oh, here's how they get their money. He just seems to appear with this cash. Do you have any particular insights on that?
Conversations I'm not going to elaborate on here. A lot of it had to do with the blackmail of powerful people for various purposes. And I think one of them was somebody that was known involved with a company, Victoria's Secret.
Oh yeah, it's public that he had
allegedly a homosexual relationship with a certain individual. That a lot of that and with boys was on video, and what would they rather do? Be disgraced and go to prison, or pay him or involve him or pretend that he's managing their assets? So
okay, that's basically what I was sort of assuming. It just seems like there was a lot kind of going on. It's like this doesn't make so much of this didn't make sense from a certain point of view, but it made a lot more sense from another point of view. We are tap dancing around things because none of us we would like to do another show.
Well, think how valuable his videos with Prince Andrew are, and the level of society and power that anybody in the royal family can get an appointment with or invest with or learn in some insider trading, I guess, all over the world. And to have somebody like that in your pocket, your Super Bowl trophy, his exact words, blackmail because he's having relations with underage women, all over the place. I mean, where does his money come from? He gets entree to anywhere he wants to go by virtue of the blackmail he holds on powerful people with money and or access.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to this, isn't there? And what use people were to him, and on what levels. It just makes my skin crawl to think that this stuff was going on, and probably still going on in other places. I mean, this stuff is just rife, isn't it? There's going to be another setup like this somewhere, you would think. But I think there's obviously more to come as well with this as well. Yeah. There's definitely more to come with this.
I think this whole pedophilia thing is more common than people want to admit. It's just like it seems like it's every level of society. I mean, it's unbelievable. I've been in prison with some guys you'd never think, and then, like I said, they eventually exhibit certain characteristics that I've noticed. I don't know if it's a brain disease or what it is. Don't they have children or mothers or daughters or wives? Why would they do this? When they have their own children, they certainly wouldn't want these things done to.
But their experiences as well. I mean, I know that it doesn't make everybody go on to commit the same crimes, but there's something going on, isn't there?
They
There's
say hurt people, but at the same time, you reach a point where you make your own decisions.
Absolutely.
Right.
I've heard some stories where Virginia was possibly one of the recruiters, allegedly. But if she had a change of heart and help bring these people down, I say God bless her. You know, let her do what she has to do to tell what she knows and hold these people accountable.
Yeah, I mean, there's been caught up in that moment and a point where things become normal.
Right.
As well. Like, this is just the situation I'm in, whether it's good or bad, I'm just doing it and going along with it for whatever reason. And that she was young as well. So, you know, if it wasn't for them, she wouldn't have been in that position as with all of them, you know. They've got to take accountability for it. Well, he's now dead. So that's, you know, it's only her.
And there's such desperation with certain people, you know, politicians and, for example, the Clintons and all these other people to try to suppress this because their lives are basically, they're going to be in the cell next door to Maxwell, you know, when a lot of these things come to light, allegedly involved, you know.
Right.
But for having seen some of the videos, I could name quite a few of the names and identify where some of the videos may have ended up or been suppressed or, yeah, there's very powerful people involved. The media doesn't cover it, I don't think, near as much as they should.
Oh, they've actively tried to suppress it. I mean, that was one of the things that came out earlier, and it was the woman who was caught on the she was a reporter, I think for ABC or NBC, but she was talking about how she had all this stuff on Prince Andrew. She had all and her the station or the corporation she was told her not to do it. They're like, you shut this down. We're not talking about
the lady who wrote for Vanity Fair, I think Vicky Ward. Yeah,
maybe.
She did a great expose, and he made some comments, and then somebody came forward to talk to her, and he warned her, put her on notice. She was about to have a baby. You know, where's the baby? He named where her baby was going to be born. Where her baby was going to be born.
No, this was a different one.
Terrorized journalist.
You know, no, this was a different one because her boss basically she was on air, or she was on it was a hot mic moment, and she was talking to one of the guys off camera, and she's like, we had all this months ago, and her editor wouldn't let her go with it. So that's a different story from what you're telling. But I have no doubt that there's a lot of people. What's her name? The actress who's been talking about Weinstein and all this. That was one of the stories that she was talking about a while ago.
Rose McGowan.
Yeah, Rose McGowan.
She's actually, I mentioned her in this. She was one of my inspirations for this book. Robert Durst book. I give her credit and acknowledgments for coming one of the first to come forward, and nobody would listen. So I guess she took a settlement and went about her business. But still, she's traumatized, and he was allowed to continue and accumulate all these other victims.
Well, the thing that she said that
he has all these victims. This other guy here has all these other victims. He sends me a picture of his girlfriend dead and says, that's what happens to people who go to the feds against me on the kitchen floor. I mean, he sends it to my phone a few months ago.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. But there's people that knew about him and were too afraid to do anything, or him posing as a Hell's Angel and dangerous guy. And while at the same time, he's helping, the feds and these other agencies. We have cases of corrupt informants like him before. We have Whitey Bulger in Boston. The FBI, while simultaneously killing people and robbing everybody. We have both Greg Scarpa's father and son, captain and boss of the Colombo crime family in New York, working top echelon informants for the FBI, while at the same time simultaneously killing people. Situation unfolding right here in the last few weeks. Everybody you talk to has a story about somebody who disappeared, turned up dead, or was threatened or drugged by this guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and one of the things that the thing that struck me about what Rose McGowan said was when she called her agent after the assault, right? The first words out of her agent's mouth was, that son of a b, he owes me because I just killed another story like this.
Wow.
And I'm like, and of course she's like, it's like, she's like, at that point she realized everyone was in on it. Right. Just everyone. So I get exactly what you're saying. It's like, everyone's in on this. Everyone knows. Everyone, it's just no one wants to talk. No one wants to do anything because it's easier to go after the little fish than to go after the big fish.
Yeah, and everybody that excuse me, that he targeted, they wanted something from him. The people who suppressed it, they wanted to do a movie or cast somebody in a movie.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So they just kept letting it go, and look how many more victims this created.
Yeah.
Some of the other victims, if it's okay for me to mention them, so people
please
can raise awareness. We're working with some people that are actually innocent in prison, wrongful incarceration. It's Dave Reinhardt. It's a big one. FreeDaveReinhardt.com. He's in California. Dr. Leslie Scholl, I explained to you guys what this guy did to him, put him in prison for 13 years. He just got released. Trina McCreary, this guy admitted to killing her, but he's not charged. So she was assisting the FBI and bringing this guy down, ending his reign. Lynn Schulte, one of the victims of Robert Durst. Morris Black, of course. Susan Berman in Los Angeles. Robert Durst was just convicted for killing her. So you have Larry Revis. He was murdered for an estate in California, Fresno, California. There's a gigantic probate fraud racket going on in Fresno.
Wow!
I hold his wife up in prayers, Leslie Revis, and my beautiful fiance was his stepdaughter.
Right.
Kathy Durst, of course. I want everybody to keep them in their prayers and memory. In the McCormack family, they've been suffering a long time. I got to know some of these people in the course of the last few years. I didn't know them beforehand. And so the victims, many people, I just ask everybody to remember them again. That's why I sign in red ink. If you ever go to my book signing, it's always in red ink. And so I want to put it out there. That's for the victims. Natalie Wood, another one. She's a murder victim and a famous actress. So I knew the person involved with that for a little while back in the 80s. Who else? Let me see. I think for now, that's who I have. There's thousands of them. There's thousands and thousands of murder victims, victims of pedophiles. And so, I just want everybody to keep these people in mind, please, if you can. And we're going to be doing, my own material, and I'm going to obviously come here more often and talk to you guys. You've been very helpful in walking me through this process, because I didn't even know much about technology, let alone what are we doing right now? I couldn't even tell you what this is called. I think it's a Zoom meeting or something. But I look at other ones now to try to learn what other people are doing, and everybody says, well, you have a story to tell, use this format, and try to get stories out there.
Yeah, well, you want to build up your YouTube channel. I'm going to put the link to your YouTube channel in the chat and ask people to go over. If you're interested in this sort of stuff, and I can't imagine you won't be, you need to go over and help William build up his channel, get some subscribers, because he is going to start putting out some little shorts and some information about the stuff that he's doing and that he's interested in, and to build up awareness and support for these victims. And he's going to come back on again, and we're going to talk more. Like I said, there's so many layers to this guy that I want to get into, and that like you say, you're a part of the puzzle by giving information, and that applies to anybody. If you know anything about anything, go and help, go and give that information. There's a lot more crimes that go on in America than they do in England, and they're exposed so much on the internet, on YouTube. And it's shows like these where people are talking, where information does come out or can come out, or encourage someone to come out, or at least get in touch with you and tell you something and pass information on. And any little bit could really help. So that is important. So that's the link in the description in the chat, and also put it in the description, a link to your website, a link to your book on Amazon, and again, the link to YouTube. There's so much more to cover. What's your immediate plans with what you're doing?
My immediate plans is to learn how to put up some more content and maybe inside information. I think once my TV show airs this summer, I'm going to have more on my hands than I know what to do with. So this is a good learning curve.
I guarantee you will.
And Daniela and Carrie from Lady Justice have been incredible in walking me through this process. as has my fiance, Dr. Mary Bass.
Yeah.
You guys are just awesome, and I appreciate the encouragement and all the encouraging comments and everything. So,
no, we appreciate you coming on, and we'd love to talk to Mary at some
Oh,
point.
yeah.
If you'd like to come on.
She's a data scientist. She's all over it. She's
Definitely.
also been victimized, and like I have, for trying to do the right thing, retaliated on, threatened, and just all kinds of falsified nonsense. But in the end, we do what we do. And I think you guys saw the clip from ABC News where she was profiled on ABC just a few weeks ago. So she's doing the right thing, and she's trying to help victims of violent crime and of financial crimes, especially. And that's really her forte.
Yeah, it's great. It's great, and we'll get into it more. Guys, look, go and get the book. Honestly, your ears will peel back when you're on your eyelids, when you're reading some of the stuff that went on. And I don't want to give too much away because it'd be pointless. If we do, but I can guarantee, and Kerry will in the chat there, how good that book is. So I hope people do go out and get it. Thank you for coming on tonight. I want to definitely get you back on again, William. We've got so much more to talk about.
I find it interesting through this experience, especially with this book, that I'm actually selling a lot of books in the UK and even in South Africa. I've met a few people from South Africa. I don't know much about South Africa, but it was pretty interesting. And everybody's like a crime fighter or a Wonder Woman or, a wannabe Superman or James Bond or something, I think it's pretty incredible. One of my favorite pictures of my fiance, she's standing by a picture of Wonder Woman. I said, "You're my Wonder Woman." She's brave. She's really brave. So,
no, it sounds like it. No, absolutely. Like I said, we'd definitely love to have her on. And thank you for coming on. I do have one tiny little question before we go.
What's that?
I'm going to do a lot of hand signals here so that because clearly the NSA is watching our show.
Do I believe in Sasquatch?
Oh no. I mean, it sounds like everyone. So if you heard something, sure, let us know. But specifically, let me get.
He was in the video with Andrew.
Oh, well, there you go. That's why he hasn't surfaced.
Exactly.
Darn it, Bigfoot.
He's in the tower. They got him hostage in the tower.
Yeah, they got it. Exactly. So Epstein, last question. I'm going to use the words allegedly. It has been alleged by some people I know that Epstein may have had ties to a certain three-letter organization that may begin with C and end with A. In your hypothetical opinion, knowing nothing, would that supposition be correct?
I can't hear you. I have something in my eye.
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
So much for coming on. It's been a great show. Thank you to everyone in the chat. I'm sorry if I missed any questions. I think we got them all. But like I say, William's going to be back. We're going to get into this even more. We definitely want to get into the Durst stuff. But for now, thank you so much. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Daniela.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for everybody who's been encouraging me since my release. And like I said, I'm just beyond grateful. And thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. You hang on there. Just don't go yet. Everyone, I'll see you on Tuesday night on Bigfoot Odyssey for Drawing Bigfoot. And we've got Rob coming on. Bigfoot Mitchell coming on to give his account of that Sasquatch he saw. He said there was two faces to it. One when it was focusing on what he was doing, and then when it stood up and looked at him, we're going to be drawing that image. So, guys, until then, take care, and we'll see you all soon. Good night.
Bye.